My name is Jay Wright. I am Vice President of Product Management at Qualcomm, where I'm responsible for our Vuforia business unit. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about Vuforia today, but for those of you that do not know about Qualcomm, we are one of the largest providers of mobile technology in the world. In fact, many of you, probably nearly all of you, have a device that you use every day that either contains a Qualcomm chip or makes use of other Qualcomm technology. So instead of talking about tech today, we are here to talk about toys, and specifically the impact of mobile devices on the toy industry. Now, I understand the toy industry has seen technological change before and has been through other waves, but I think perhaps mobile devices may be a little different. And the reason I think they're a little different will probably appear if we get a little context from some numbers. There was a study that came out, and I think it was actually done by, it was a New York-based company that has an app lock screen for Android. And they determined that during an average day, we look at our phone 110 times. 110 times. That is once every 6 or 7 minutes. And I can tell you, I know that is true because about 20% of you are looking at your phones right now. Totally cool. I would be doing exactly the same thing. But the phone has literally become an extension of our being, right? I mean, any time that you need some information, or if you even want to kill 1 or 2 minutes, it's the first thing that we're looking at. In fact, there's even been many articles, health-oriented articles, that say why it's a good idea not to sleep with your phone. And that's because people are, like kids, teenagers are putting these things under their pillow. So it's, you don't want to miss a chance to get a message. So pretty amazing. And there's some really surprising statistics for younger kids too. So again, from a study that was the end of last year, it was Common Sense Media had done a study, found 38% of kids under 2 use smartphones or tablets. Wow. That's pretty impressive. So we've seen technological change before. We've seen TV, we've seen the PC, we've seen consoles, but I do not think that they have had that kind of penetration. So I can tell you that the industry as a whole is taking notice. Consumer marketers are absolutely taking notice. Now that this device has become an extension of our being, they want to find out how to connect with us through it. And the toy industry has absolutely taken notice because we're, in some respects, competing with these devices for kids' attention. So I think there's been a tremendous need to connect these mobile devices back to toys so we can create a combined experience that accomplishes 2 important objectives. 1, let's help entertain and educate kids, and 2, let's do it in a way that helps us build our business. So, with that introduction, I'd like to move on and start the panel. And before we get started, I'd like to have each of our esteemed, and I think you'll find somewhat entertaining, panelists introduce themselves. Steve, would you like to start?
Sure. Steve Drucker. Hi, Steve Drucker. I have my own company. What's the name? Interaction Development. I left Hasbro about 6 or 8 months ago, where I formerly was on the integrated play team, which brought together all the transmedia talent in Hasbro all onto one team. So it's very exciting, and I think that's why we're all here talking about these new transmedia opportunities.
I'm Miles Ludwig, and I lead the R&D group at Sesame Workshop, which is called the Content Innovation Lab. And it's not a creative development group or a technology for cool technology's sake group. Really the way we try and approach it is, you know, if you think about 1968, at that time it took quite a bit of vision on the part of Sesame Street's founders to recognize that the television, which was then an emerging technology, was apt to become ubiquitous and had the potential to be a tool for learning. And so we try and emulate that breakthrough vision in thinking about things like augmented reality or expression recognition, various different kinds of digital physical integrations. And we work with IDEO and with Qualcomm on a wide range of projects that try and develop new approaches to Sesame Street storytelling using technology.
Morning, everyone. I'm Brendan. I'm at IDEO. I'm passionate about this intersection of play and innovation. Most people think the opposite of play is work. I think it's boredom, especially with respect to, if you're not excited about something, you're not going to work on it. If you're not excited about some kind of toy, it's not going to resonate. And then it's just this Dr. Stuart Brown is a luminary in the play field. I love his quote. It's like, you can't do your homework until you've gone outside and played. It's just like, I like to bring some of that attitude, certainly with the whole explosion in mobile.
I'm Ricardo Viena, creative director at Swappz Interactive. Right now we're going to be, traditionally we're looking at our present day technology is not that far, sorry, I'm a little nervous about doing it. I lost my train of thought. But anyway, the main point for my position is generally that right now we're working with a physical product, combining with augmented reality, but right now it's very static. And for us at Swappz, we're actually looking forward to see where our road is actually going to go. Integrating not just the mobile device, but countless others augmented reality devices that we have out there. Why make one product for just the mobile phone if you can actually do it for the mobile phone, the iPhone, the PlayStation Eye, and the Kinect, all to give you a full augmented reality experience. And that's what we're looking at right now in our division.
Excellent, thanks. Maybe to kick this off, the last few days we've had a number of discussions just on the Qualcomm Vuforia team, and there seems to be different perceptions on behalf of different toy companies about whether mobile is really a net threat or a net opportunity. Could you guys comment a little bit on how you see it from where you sit in your respective businesses? Maybe Steve?
Sure. It's so rife with opportunity, but it's creative opportunity. It's about content that's right for the media, transmedia platforms. Imagine building your own character, putting all this work into them, porting them over to a game, printing them out on your desk, which every kid's going to have one, right? This is my character. I made him. Now I'm going to share with them. Now I'm going to play with them. And guess what? With kind of tool sets like Vuforia has, I can go to almost anywhere in the world and have my character go walk there. I could meet a friend there with his character. The creative possibilities here for both the hard plastic, the digital, and the hard plastic, we're now just playing in the low-hanging fruit because everybody comes to the table with their skill sets from their previous jobs, right? Get really good at something, really good at boys' toys, right? I know how to blow stuff up. But you take all that, you take your own low-hanging fruit of how you've developed content and developed these play experiences against these core kids. There's a play pattern to every kid. There's the kid that likes to blow stuff up. There's the kid that likes strategy. There's the kids that's all about just friendship and socially moving through life. All of that is now being redefined. To me, transmedia now is transparent media. That's what the mobile technology is for.
I think there's a tension. There's probably a threat. Parents are worried about screen time. So is it going to be good screen time or not? And that's probably where design or creative thinking can help us. So if a parent assumes initially there's an educational benefit, great. So that tension is always there, I think. You've seen that too, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly disruptive and driving evolution. I see that as a net gain.
Yeah, that's positive.
Right, I see it as positive, though it is disruptive, so that can be scary, and certainly it's scary even for Sesame Street because we are in many ways a traditional media company. We're 45 years old, and so change is difficult for everyone. But I think that the penetration of mobile devices creates a lot of opportunities. From our perspective as a nonprofit, a lot of opportunities for learning, and in particular for the kind of co-engagement that was a big part of what Sesame Street did in the 70s, where it was seen as a very important that parents loved the show and would watch it with their children, and we know that kids are more engaged and learn a lot more when that's happening. But also things like being able to develop experiences and deliver experiences that are sensitive to context. Is the child in the car? Are they waiting in the doctor's office? Mobile enables those kinds of experiences, whether there's a physical component or not.
That came out of, there was some stats yesterday that one of the best parent uses of the mobile devices, like 33% or something, was in the car. Oh my God, I love it when I can give the kids the mobile and do all the things they love to do anywhere they want to do them.
Yep.
And then it's up for the rest of us in other kinds of media to play in that playpen. That's the challenge, the creative challenge.
So Brendan, this concern about parental screen time, is the concern there because it's not educational, they're just wasting time in front of the device? What is the concern?
No, I
How's
think
it
that
best
concern's been
addressed?
around a long time, right? Like, around when I was a kid, sit in front of the TV too long. So, yeah. So I think that
Sure,
tension,
affected us.
I think that tension's there, but I think that's an opportunity for companies or designers to think about how can I make this. I'm really excited about mobile as far as like a creative tool, especially around photo or video. You gave some great stats, and I see 20% of folks still using the phone. But more photos were taken last year than the history of all photos. I mean, in the history of all time for photos. So, and you see 3-year-olds taking photos now, right? So what does that mean? So I think it's there. If the parent sees it like it's either a creative tool or it's something educational, and then the designer has to put the fun in there, the play in there, because otherwise no one's going to use it. Right?
Yeah.
See, for me, I don't see it as much of a problem if you're passing a mobile device to a child at that age. I'm assuming, most of the time with most of the games, with the future of augmented reality, I'm actually going to be able to share it with a child. I'm actually going to be able to share it with my parents. And as a parent, I'm actually able to share that experience with a child. A static image like a picture or a TV show doesn't quite have that type of impact, unless a parent is literally sitting beside it. But nothing stops me from doing this, taking in images and the technology and everything else, and then sharing it with my parents, going, look, this is what I can do, what I can't do. As a matter of fact, taking the next step, the parent technically could dictate what the game is going to be like based on their own personal feelings and own experiences. The game itself should just be very general. Let the parent decide or the child decide what's the most vibrant experience.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I just want to echo that. We've seen an insight around that the child wants to have this sort of family theater moment. So they want to create something and then share it with everyone. It's sort of like when we used to do like a somersault. And do it when you're young. You want to show off in front of your parent. When you get a little older, then you just want to hide everything from your parents.
So it sounds like mobile devices are here. It's a design challenge to come up with a play pattern that's compelling that kids like and is okay with mom and dad. Let's talk about the play pattern for a second, because I've also heard a lot in the last few days about, we saw these initial wave of like app toys come out, and app toys were kind of using technology for technology's sake, and they weren't a really compelling pattern, play pattern. On the other hand, we've seen some things that have been really, really successful. Not all mobile, but on the console side, there's Skylanders and Infinity. What are the play patterns that are going to work here, or what are the seeds of a play pattern that's going to work here? Whoever wants to take it.
Yeah, for me, being from the console industry in the past, Infinity and Skylanders and all the rest of that work really, really well because you're purchasing the figures to unlock portions of the game. The parent has already spent the $80 for the game, and I'm going to be spending $5 per figure to unlock even more of that. So generally as a whole, I'm basically taking this physical figure and using it in some way to bring it to the game. I believe the future would actually be that there is a physical object here, and I'm actually projecting my game onto the physical object. That to me is now where we're going to start seeing the next wave of technology. Having a figure seems very static. Once the figure is scanned, you kind of put it aside. The child will normally never really see it again unless he wants to show it off to his friends. But if I have something in front of me that actually, once I use the mobile device, can interact with the device, and it almost looks like a little miniature city or sea monkeys, what I grew up with, you're actually taking it to another level. And I'm looking forward to what's the next level after that, where, let's be honest, television technology will rise, phone technology, and everything else, and we just manipulate it, laterally thinking it, put it together in one package. If we look at it individually, we're in trouble. But if we look at all the technology and smack it all together, almost like a conglomerate, we can actually create some really powerful stuff.
Miles?
I think that transmedia is a big part of the answer, which, is spend way too much time talking about. But I think that if you think about transmedia as being content experiences where there are multiple ways in, and from every one of those access portals, you encounter a consistent world, a consistent set of characters, a consistent kind of mythos.
Yeah.
Experiences that really deliver on that have always had super high appeal for kids. And it's like when I was a kid and Star Wars came out and it blew my mind, and then I just wanted to keep playing Star Wars. I didn't want to go home and do something else.
Right.
And so anything that would allow me to continue playing Star Wars. But if someone handed me some Star Wars thing that was a little off, that was a little different, characters didn't look quite the same, that wasn't Star Wars. So I think that successful transmedia transcends particular platforms and it creates the kind of hits that we've seen with Skylanders.
So the idea is I need to have multiple entry points
Yes.
to a consistent experience, whether
Yes.
it's on a mobile device, whether it's with the toys or the TV show, or
Right, and you hear stories, there's some classic stories, I won't name names, about big brands who, had siloed teams working on particular properties where, they would name characters different names and, ultimately fail. Right, so that's the challenge, is to create that integration in your own creative and production and design process.
you made me think of another challenge too. It seems even in toy companies today, the team that's doing the physical toys is often in a separate place than digital, and bringing the two together can be somewhat of an organizational challenge unto itself.
Right.
Steve, do you have
Well,
thoughts on that?
a lot of times that ends up being budget, so a lot of the bigger brands are the ones that really can, wrap their arms around experimentation, failure, and moving forward.
Sure.
So in toys, you could watermark a TV show, you could audio watermark anything that comes in your video on your phone, and that's really easy to talk to a Furby or an Optimus Prime that has a chip in it that reacts to an audio watermark, very expensive to add to a TV show. And hi, wow, it's Saturday morning. We're watching our favorite show. You can have this whole new relationship with all this, and and breaking down all those walls is what the kids are doing. We watched it all day yesterday, where I do something. I'm watching my favorite show, I'm talking with my friend, and I'm sending some of my favorite pictures on Instagram over here on my iPad. And they don't have the walls we have. They're fine with that. As a matter of fact, it's really a lot of fun.
I think kind of going back to the type of play, I think it's going to be really interesting to see around, because the mobile is so transportable, around like role-playing or exploratory play or rough and tumble type of play. How does that going to be unlocked? I think that's going to be very interesting in the future. So I think this sort of initial wave, sort of like, it's kind of closer to the initial sort of surge of the apps. The first apps that came out, a lot of them were just sort of trivial or sort of fun or interesting, but they weren't based on real insight. So I think taking different types of play and then combining this technology would be really interesting.
It relates to pictures, as you were talking
Yeah.
about earlier. When you think about rough and tumble and how does that connect to the mobile experience,
Yeah.
pictures is an easy way. Here I am beating up my brother.
All right, we got to laugh out of this group.
One of the things I've heard a few times about this whole digital physical thing is there has to be a digital experience that then enhances the physical experience, which then has to go back and enhance the digital experience, and there has to be like this two-way positive feedback loop, which theoretically sounds very interesting, and I don't know if it's been accomplished or if it even really attainable. Is that important, or is that just some ideal we're holding ourselves?
I don't think it matters. Like, start putting motors in toys years ago. No one talks about that.
Yeah.
Now it'll just be seamless. Sorry, I didn't cut you.
Oh my God.
So I think all four of you are innovators and have done a lot experimenting with different types of technology. So from where you sit today and your view in the future, what technologies are going to be important to have in your toolbox to realize these kind of play patterns? And please don't feel any obligation to favor what we're doing with Vuforia or anything else. We really would like to give everybody an objective view on what it is you think is important.
Well, so there's been a lot of buzz about VR this year at CES, and then with Gabe Newell from Valve saying this is the year of VR, and obviously everything that Oculus Rift is doing. And while I have some real reservations about preschoolers and full headsets, I think for older kids, VR is at some point. I don't know if it's going to be this holiday, but it's going to become huge, dominating. At some point. And then in the longer term, I think that more broadly, wearable screens are going to replace cell phones over some period of time. There's not really any reason to carry around a device when you can wear a contact lens that gives you all that information hands-free. So we're working on both of those.
For the nearer term, Miles, when I just talk about addressing today's phones and tablets, I mean, should I think about, or is it reasonable to think about putting batteries and radios and Bluetooth and toys? I mean, things are so, cost is such an important issue for...
Yes, I mean, so we're moving towards a world in which everything is chipped, Internet of Everything, etc. And I think that over time, people and younger people will quickly lose patience with devices that are not smart in that way, that are not aware, that are not connected, that are not able to connect to other devices, that are not able to send their data, into the cloud or onto Facebook. I think that is that will sort of non-chipped devices will start to be nostalgic kind of fetish objects. It'll be like vinyl,
Wow.
and I think that's within the next 5 or 10 years.
Non-chipped objects. Fetish.
Yeah, I mean, right? Like, why would you want a lawnmower that wasn't chipped? I mean, it's just stupid.
Right. When I think about it, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
Brandon, thoughts?
Yeah, well, there's an explosion of just being connected. You go into your hotel, you go into a hotel now, and it's just nice if you're already connected. You don't have to log in. You go into United, figure this out, so you don't have to do that. So it's going to happen so fast. Everything will just be connected. Having to pay or sign up for something would just seem like. So take advantage of that would be huge. And I love the augmented reality stuff. I think it's really cool. I think it's fascinating. How can that be really based on some kind of insight that helps you just for toy instructions or whatever? It would be cool, and all sorts of different things. I think that'll be unlocked. That'll just be like another kind of tool that a designer or a creative person have in their toolbox. But to me, it's just eventually when we're connected all the time, what would that unlock?
See, for me, that connectivity will work in a way to share experiences, either from an educational standpoint, much like games like Animal Crossing that came out years ago and everything else, where I could go to my neighbor or my friend's property or his territory, and he has specific plants that only grow up in his land. We now actually can have a complete experience without children ever actually physically being in front of each other. And technically, I can see his stories that he's creating using like some of our licenses, like Hello Kitty and all the rest. I can actually create a story with that element, and then pass around with my friends where they're seeing in their augmented reality environment. And if I have my pieces, I can then reenact back. And so it just becomes this constant cycle. As long as that connection is still there, I think we can either go from audio to physical to everything else to constantly connect it with other people. That's...
Yeah, I just want to add on that. I love the maker movement. So, and then everyone gives everyone the chance, enables them to be creative versus just passive. Right? So, I think that's coming. Really going to affect the industry.
But kids' development isn't going to change. They got to learn how to use this. They got to learn how to connect this to this. They got to tell stories. They live in a theater of play. Augmented reality, puts 10 times to all those opportunities for the kids to truly create theaters of play. It's getting easier and easier to animate anything you want. There are animating softwares where you just, it's color coded. There's animation software for 2-year-olds all the way up to DreamWorks, right? And all of this is getting easier and easier, which means that the imagination and my personal theater of play gets exponentially greater. And I mean, and this is really exciting. This maker movement, to me, is about the most exciting thing in the last 10 years. Because I think instead of the end of certain kinds of play, I think all play are really going to be way more fun. And way easier to share, which is also part of the kids building their social life, being proud of what I do best. All those things are so important. None of that goes away. It just gets better.
So on this connectivity theme, I mean, do you think in the future, maybe in the not too distant future, there's just going to be an expectation by kids that mobile devices work with their toys in some way, that they're either connected or I point my phone at it or tablet at it to get more information? Will they just expect that? Sort of like they expect magazines to be touchscreens?
Yeah, it's funny, we were doing a bunch of testing of stuff. We were working with Miles. 2-year-olds swiping table because we had a photo underneath the glass, and they just thought that was a screen. And,
So awesome.
and in the future, it probably will be, right? Like, but on the other hand, that same kid, still just as much fun to take a big refrigerator box and hang out and have fun in that, right? So we can't forget that is there. So you know, it's another tool.
See, for me, it's the aspect of the toy should probably have more than one use in some way, shape, or form. So much like Lego, for example. If you have an augmented reality Lego set, I can create whatever the heck I want. There's no set rules, and the child doesn't have to feel like, oh, he has to do a certain process and procedure. If he actually succeeds and builds a home, congratulations, there's a certain reward that's given to the child, and then boom, as he experiments with that initial building or structure, we constantly reward him on his imagination. If he decides just to throw the box down on the ground, congratulations, that's also a prize too, because you're doing something with it, and that to me is.
But then he gets to drop that over the Washington Monument, and then say, hey dude, my building that I built in downtown Manhattan, you want to go see it?
Yeah.
And wow, that's fun, right? That's really a lot of fun. So I think that's the kind of tools that are coming out of the mobile
I keep
space.
hearing a lot about transgame. For my network, it's normally the metagaming. It's what can this product or entertainment can do outside of what we originally were expecting it to do, and then everything else is just trickling down from there. So that you have fans that are online going, oh, I never realized that toy can do this, and this. Oh, okay, but they still don't think that the toy was not valuable with their own purchase. They just didn't know that this toy can actually do what the one does.
Right.
And then we go from there.
And some particular magic or viral magic happens when kids can create those new uses and share them with other kids, right? So that where it's like, I had no idea that this could do this, and it was another kid, you know, not the company, but another kid that discovered it and shared it with me, and now I'm right.
We've seen that in the console business every time where someone's going, oh, I took down this cavern and I went this way. Oh my God, even the mic.
Ricardo, did you get the mic?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. From the console, you have a lot of people that were basically saying, hey, I was playing this game and I went down this way and I saw the dragon and blah, blah, blah. You would have 45% to 50% of the audience going, I never even knew you can go there. And then boom, you start having talking, and everyone starts playing a game for the next 3 years, the exact same game, which has a longer lifespan by 2 extra years because of the metagaming element of it.
Right, and Rainbow Loom is an incredibly powerful example of how that's working.
So let's do one more question, then open it up for Q&A. But coming back to the here and now and the more practical matter, how is it that we're going to make money with these digital experiences? I've heard the challenge of we can't charge more for the physical toy because it's got the digital experience, because maybe not everybody's going to use it. We've got the additional challenge of kids are not into, or parents are not into, in-app purchases. How are we going to recoup the investment required to develop these things?
We got the answer to that one. 'Cause I'd like to know that one. It's really challenging. There are a bunch of different experiments happening. I think it's a great question. I think the bigger question is how can we create value, and then that's going to turn into something else. So it may be a much longer term play than the industry's used to.
Or that the app business is used to.
Yeah.
Is there value in data that can come back from the app just to understand what the child is doing, to better understand the play pattern for even market research purposes, to understand where to take the product?
But then we're not allowed to do too much of that.
Very
We
anonymized
think
way.
there's a lot of value from an educational perspective, because to the extent that we can understand what individual children are doing and when are they learning the most, then not only are we able to optimize for that in future products, but sometimes we're able to actually adapt the experience for that individual child. So we're really interested in that.
Yeah, well, you guys are gold standard. I think there's, that kind of data is super interesting to the parents. That could be a tool for them to then sort of modify how the child's playing or give them other experiences. So that will be super helpful for them.
But it all really does come around. It's not one key driver anymore. That's the term we like. It's like, no, it's not. This isn't the one thing that's going to make or break my, make my budget for the year. It's really, all those key touch points around the IP that the kid's in, and you got to deliver against those touch points. You need to build dynamic brands, dynamic characters that really are part of the kids' lives. So it's not just the toy, but it's the toy and the book. And oh, by the way, when my toy is standing on the book, it gives me even more information. And when I go to play the game, it pings back and gives me value because, I get a new accessory that I'll be able to print out. It's a very dynamic challenge, and it takes just this new kind of thinking. It's an embracing thinking, right, around the characters, the context, the world.
Thanks, Steve. Well, let's go ahead and open it up for questions from the audience. Do we have a microphone, or are we just shouting from the... We're shouting from the audience. I like it. How about this right here?
Hi, my name is Julie. I have a question. So you said that kind of ideal product would be a physical product that would then interact with a digital product and then return something to the physical product. And I actually think the example showed earlier, Rainbow does exactly that. You have a physical product, which is also a maker product, and you interact with a digital product, and that enhances the physical product. But I also think that people at Rainbow didn't plan for that. That wasn't kind of in their intent. So the question to you guys is if you had any surprises, either good ones or bad ones, when you planned for something, for a product, and then with the kids playing with it, they did something completely different.
I'll go ahead and summarize that question really briefly for those of you who couldn't hear. I think the question was, we made a statement about you need to have a play pattern where physical reinforces the digital and the digital reinforces the physical, but it was Rainbow Loom. I forget to bring Rainbow Loom. The Rainbow. But Rainbow Loom happened accidentally, right? That was not planned to be part of the play pattern, it just happened accidentally. So what are key learnings that have happened? Have we seen that happen elsewhere? We're surprised.
I think you have it happen almost every time. You try to plan for it, but I think what's important, and what the industry probably doesn't do enough of, is test to learn, not test to validate. So we want to go out there and test, and then 100 kids didn't like it, and then we can the product, versus what did we learn from that, and then we can do a better design experience.
I mean, one answer to your question is all of us here have way more failures than successes. So and you got to learn.
Other questions? Yeah, right here.
Well, my first question is regarding content. How do you explain when something is really successful and children are constantly engaged and almost addicted, something like Minecraft, for example. Then they have this guy on YouTube that 200,000 kids watch the way that he's playing the game and he gives them tips. So what makes something really like a big hit that they... And also my second question is in regards to schools and curriculum and education, how would you see the future of technology and everything that you guys are working on migrating into the world of education and helping children to learn while being entertained?
So who wants to take the first one about how do you predict viral breakout success?
I have. Okay. Well, I'm not a super wealthy man, but for me, there's two main rules that I like to go by. One is simplicity, and two, it's modularization. If you're keeping everything incredibly simple, yet you know that the entire game itself or a product can expand every 3 months with something brand new, yet still working on the fundamentals, that to me is where games like Minecraft really did incredibly well. Let's be honest, you're putting blocks on the ground and building. You can't get anything much simpler than that. But then you do come to realize that, wow, as new blocks are created, everything is just modular. You don't have to wreck everything you've created in the past. You actually can build with the new stuff onto the past. And that's where I think games like Minecraft and many, many others out there do incredibly well. It's simple. You can just jump right in. You don't need to really learn anything. There's not much tutorials. And that's exactly what a play experience should be. Get in and out as fast as you possibly can based on your experience. That's, for me, for Minecraft. Second question.
I mean, I think that kids are pretty good at sniffing out when they're not intended to have any control over a transmedia world. And so something like Minecraft, philosophically, it was created in such a way that it provides just an open platform for kids to make stuff and build upon the world and imagine themselves in it. And I think often what happens when we're coming from a more auteur perspective, right, and we want to have sort of rigid control over characters and storylines, we end up creating worlds where kids can't find themselves in it. They can only be at arm's length from the content. And they might be very engaged by the stories, but when they can't find themselves in it, there's no room for it to go viral because there's no way to share. There's no way to... Does that make sense?
Oh,
it's a little
absolutely. When you set up an animation like an intellectual property Bible and you want to build a team, you really got to know you got to know your audience, right? And each person on the team is a core kid play pattern, right? It's not just the big kid or the small kid or the girl. It's what they do inside, how they problem solve. That's why kids come back and watch, wow, that's like me, or that's going to be my best friend. Buzz Lightyear, for instance, is like, it's like an Elmo. It's like your best friend. You want to play with your best friend. You want to go on every adventure with your best friend.
And you know how he's going to react to any given situation.
Right.
There's enough information provided, but there's also some room to move, so that you could walk up to any kid who's into Buzz and say, hey, what if you did this to Buzz? You put him on top of a dinosaur. What would he say? And kids can answer it. And that's a sign that transmedia is working when that happens.
Right.
In my view.
And I'm very against a lot of the people that really get really down on brands. My neighbor, this little kid, he was really having trouble going to his first day of school. And he was a Buzz Lightyear kid. He had Buzz Lightyear sheets, he had pillow, Buzz Lightyear pajamas, and everybody goes, oh, soaking him for money. No, Buzz Lightyear was really important to him. And his parents went, he didn't want to get on the bus. I don't want to go to school tomorrow, I'm not going. And his parents realized what the answer to their problem was. Put on your Buzz Lightyear pajamas underneath your school clothes, and Buzz will go with you to school. To infinity and beyond. Everything went great. So characters are important, heroes are important, and being best friends with you and growing up with them and staying true to them.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's great. It's why I believe most of us do what we do.
I think the second question was around education, right?
Yeah, I think it was how is all this technology going to maybe move over?
Well, you're seeing it. It's definitely with electronic books, which would be super exciting. But my textbook was 8 years old. I you saw all the other kids' names in there, and stuff changed in 8 years, right? So that would be amazing to have a dynamic sort of book. And then the sort of overlap of play and learning, I think, is such crucial for the classroom to create learners, not just folks, with the drill and kill kind of philosophy. So that I think is going to be fascinating. And then combining the maker movement in schools, so you're actually using that to learn. Again, making lifelong learners. I think this would be such a cool area for us to explore.
And let's not forget the potential that we now have with mobile devices and everything else to take education outside of the school and then pass out to the home where, this is me talking hypothetically, nothing says that a group of 3 or 4 kids cannot work together on a specific project using augmented reality and work for credits on the side. It doesn't necessarily have to be up for their Nobel Peace Prize type of thing, but at least it's something that's being done outside of the regular school to make education enjoyable. And once you have that with either figures and plus an interactive TV show that possibly Sesame Workshop doing something with specific logos that are popping on screen, the mobile devices interpreting those logos as part of the toy, you're sharing a lot. And if education then becomes fun, we know that we're going to have a much smarter generation next, because it's going to be easier for them to jump into the education backpack.
Well, and we'll take one more question.
So, sorry, this is kind of, Miles, you mentioned the VR stuff coming down the pike and some potential concerns. Can you write a potential talk about developmentally, especially in the pre-K area, what are kind of the do's and don'ts for those areas to help with their development or potentially impede it?
Specifically with respect to VR.
Not with respect to VR, but technology that's on the horizon, whether it's specifically with apps and tablets, what are good things, good practices you can learn?
I mean, it's a hugely broad topic. So, you know, a 2.6-year-old is very, very different from a 3.3-year-old in our world and in yours. And from an interface and interaction model perspective, we spend a lot of time and energy trying to get that right. And every kid develops differently. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to testing. We have, groups of kids, playing games and watching content and, in paper testing literally on a weekly basis to try and find ways to level and scaffold both digital and physical experiences so that they're going to be success. Kids can stay in that zone of proximal development and have all of the satisfaction and mastery and have good learning outcomes from 2, through to 6.
Yeah, Miles, I think it makes a really good point. The trap in the industry is you try to design for too big a range. Whenever you ask a kid his age, it's like, I'm 4.5. Like, no one says I'm 44.5, right? Like, so, but that half is huge for that kid because it's a big percentage, right? So trying to design for a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, it's just really need to understand the differences. And for us, it's just spending a lot of time in context, testing again to learn. So it's a good question. Great question.
Well, unfortunately, we need to bring our session to a close. I'd like to thank you all for making it here to the session. And I'd like to give a big round of applause to our panelists. Thank you guys.